you head on over to the social media platform that is Instagram, Kleydson Rodrigues has 25,000 Instagram followers, which pales in comparison to like Tracy, Cortez, or Rose Namajunas, who has 2.5 million.
Whack.
But for KR, lose the nickname, making his UFC debut coming up this weekend, he is a very, very intriguing prospect out of Brazil. You head on over to that Instagram game, and he trains out of a few different gyms. One being Team Nogueira, so you see a little...
You may have heard of them.
You know, the brothers. But you see Juliana Velasquez, former Bellator flyweight champ. Yikes. And you also see him at Tropa Team, which is Shimon Moraes' gym. He just got a big win over with the PFL last week, so an interesting one. Former UFC man.
Had a tough run in the UFC, but still a very good fighter.
And a buddy of Kleydson, and they seem to be main training partners, is Felipe Clarish, who I wish we get to see more often. I like a Felipe Clarish fight. The guy's got grit. The guy is an interesting fighter. So for Kleydson, he's a former Jungle Fights flyweight champ. He was a champ back in 2019. The weird thing, if you do look at it for Rodrigues, young guy, but a fairly lengthy layoff from 2.5 years ago to when he fought about 6 months ago on Contender Series. He took on Santo Curatolo, and that was a bit of a short notice replacement that he ended up facing. Looked very, very good. Curatolo didn't get started. It was like listening to, I almost said the Red Hot Chili Peppers. That would have been a big mistake. It was like listening to Mick Jagger and Keith Richards and just getting that guitar riff over and over again, because he never started up, did Curatolo in that fight. Rodrigues looked very, very good, and Dana White just basically said, well, this one's a no-brainer. Get over here, kids. So Rodrigues ends up in the UFC. Big opportunity against CJ Vergara, a guy who came in off of Contender Series as well. But Vergara had a more impressive fight on Contender Series where he finished UFC vet Bruno Correa in that one. Knee to the body, big finish, makes the UFC debut against Ode Osbourne. And it was a shame too, right? Because it wasn't a Conor McGregor card, so Conor didn't get to fight on an Ode card. But Ode did fight Vergara, beat him in the first 2 rounds. Vergara rallied in a big way in the 3rd round of that fight. And I think a lot of people are just down on the fact that CJ Vergara lost Ode Osbourne. And now he gets a really good prospect, and now we're here.
And that's why I know we've gone up and down this card, and we really like the matchmaking for the most part. This one is a bit of an odd fight for Vergara, because I do think he's a very good fighter. He's a very talented fighter. Like you said, he showed tremendous heart his last time out by rallying late in his fight. But it is strange that you're giving a guy who himself is a promising, maybe prospect's a bit of a stretch, just giving him to what, for all intents and purposes, is an absolute killer in his UFC debut.
Give him Zhalgas Zhumagulov.
Exactly. A name like that would make a lot of sense, because for Kleydson Rodrigues, and I know you'll appreciate this reference. Fighting him must be like trying to be a batter against Nestor Cortez Jr. He's just throwing so much at you that it is really hard to get your own timing, and that's what I noticed the most when I noticed opponents of Rodrigues. You're right. It's almost like they are in a bit of like a defensive shell, because you don't want to extend yourself too much. He can box from both stances. He throws really good kicks too, to the body and to the head. The one criticism I will give of Rodrigues, it's a positive and it's a bit of a negative. He likes to throw head kicks when he's chest to chest with his opponent sometimes. It's a little weird, and against guys who are very good grapplers, it might be something that could catch him in the future, but it's also really nice that he has that level of dexterity in his hips to be able to get his foot up so high. He's such a very unique offensive fighter that I do think fighters, when they're on the other side of the cage from him, it puts a lot of question marks into their own mind, because if you're fighting someone who might not be as explosive, but they're a lot more traditional, it's like, okay, this isn't too bad. I either just have to deal with the boxing, I just have to deal with the kicks. Rodrigues is sort of an anomaly when it comes to his striking on the feet, so that's why I think it'll be interesting. What type of CJ Vergara do we see this weekend? Is he going to go out there, shoot some takedowns, try to get into dirty boxing range? Because that's the thing, Vergara's the more well-rounded in this matchup, but he's one of these wrestlers who, I don't know if he's good enough to just go out there and take Rodrigues down 12 times out of 12. I think he'll have to fight a little bit more for the takedown attempt, but I only say that because of the movement of Rodrigues. I think if Vergara can get him up against the cage, he will be able to chain wrestle much more effectively than Rodrigues can, but I do think Kleidson's one of these fighters who his movement's going to give CJ a lot of issues early on, especially with his wrestling, but if Rodrigues starts to slow down, round 2, round 3, that's when we could see CJ start to take over.
Kleydson Rodrigues seems to get stronger as fights go on.
He does.
So if you watch that fight where he took on Curtolo, I don't want to harp on it too much because, again, you can't take recency bias into it. I'll talk about some of his other fights. But on that card, you also had Steven Nguyen, you had Michael Morales, a very, very exciting prospect, and AJ Dobson, not as exciting, but had a good performance on that one. And you look at it for Rodrigues, 23 strikes total in the first round, 37 in the second, 39 in the third. He went 4 of 6 on defending the takedowns, and he was quick on his first move back up to his feet. And when I went to watch Rodrigues back on the Jungle Fight series, the thing that I picked up on out of this guy is lightning fast with his hands, very nice kicks, hips are on hinges the way that they're able to move, but he can get hit by some shots, and again, everybody's hittable. Like, everybody in this world is hittable. Not everybody's Khabib Nurmagomedov, and even Khabib got hit in some of his fights, not that much. But he gets hit by odd shots. He doesn't really get hit by the shots straight up the middle. It's more the hooks. In his fight with Silva, that's what I noticed. It was Rodrigues moves very well, but he's one of those guys that, like, plants his feet flat, and then he jumps up and springs around. He's not on the balls of his feet all the time. And when you're like that and you take that 1 second to just freeze, just take a second, because he does move a lot, that's when he's susceptible to getting hit. And Vergara is one of those strikers at a Pete Spratt Muay Thai, who Pete Spratt beat Robbie Lawler one time. It really happened. You have 2 power gyms here. I think, again, matchmaking's good. Maybe not the greatest in this fight, but it's just, I have a hard time taking Vergara in this fight, and it's unfortunate because I really do like his skill set, and if he wins this weekend, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised, but it would be one of the more surprising ones on the card overall.
Exactly. The best version of CJ Vergara could go in there and beat Kleydson Rodrigues. But I look at Rodrigues kind of like Jonathan Kuminga for the Golden State Warriors. He doesn't play a lot in the playoffs because he's crazy athletic, but he's still kind of learning the finer, minute details of the sport. For Rodrigues, I really like the talent that I do see, but I agree with you. He does get hit by some shots that you go, really? You can do all this offensively. You have all this great movement, but like a really steady jab and an uppercut every now and then can clip him because he will duck at some points when almost being upright would be better for him defensively. I still like the prospect that I have seen, though, and I do think that he's going to be in the UFC for quite a while, and that's probably why the UFC gave him CJ Vergara off of a loss for his debut. I feel like they do see a special talent in Rodrigues, so it should be interesting to see him grow in this division that definitely does need new talent. Like, flyweight's in a good spot right now, I think we can all agree on that, but it's still not the deepest of divisions. It's one of those divisions where it might only go 20 deep, even though the top 15 are really good, so it'll be interesting to see how Rodrigues gets matched up in the future.
I'm going to do this differently to end the video. Rodrigues minus 280 favorite right now. Vergara a plus 225 or thereabouts. The Topology votes are overwhelmingly in Rodrigues' favor. 645 total votes, 85% for Rodrigues, 79% by decision for the 15% that have Vergara, 52% by decision, 30 some odd percent by knockout. The weird part about it is, and this is why I'm going to say this, if you look at Kleydson Rodrigues, I say 9 times out of 10 he wins the first round out of this fight. So I think Rodrigues is going to win the first round unless Vergara's wrestling overwhelms him. But apart from that, CJ Vergara is a guy that turns it up, not just in the Ode Osborne fight. Go look at his record, go watch his fights. Plenty of finishes in the second round and the third round. I wouldn't be surprised again. Vergara turns it on, and I never say this. It's usually, okay, guy wins first round, guy wins the second round, just don't get finished in the third round. He probably wins the fight. Vergara is one of those guys that if he turns it on, like you saw Marlon Vera do, if you turn it on round 2, round 3, Vergara has a chance to win. So maybe watch the live odds after the first round. But for me, I do have Rodrigues in this fight. It's just something that I want to throw out there.
I also have Rodrigues, but again, I'm really excited for him and his potential in the UFC. I know we get on here on some of the weaker fight night cards, if we're all being honest. There'll be someone making their debut, and we have to be brutally honest and say, hey, this might just be a 2 or 3 fight UFC caliber fighter. I don't believe that at all with Kleydson Rodrigues. Like, I really do think we're going to see him around for a really long time. And the other really great sign is he's a young prospect. It's not like they're just signing this guy. He's in his 30s and they need him to fill a spot. Like, I do think the UFC's kind of thought about his development plan. I think this is the first step in it.
Big time opportunity for both these guys. We're both going with Team Nogueira's KR, change the nickname, Kleydson Rodrigues to get the win. 2 big title fights up at the top. Charles Oliveira taking on Justin Gaethje and Carla Esparza in the rematch against Rose Namajunas. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say,
let's get into it.